Today I'm going to show you how you can make this adorable little sloth. And he even has little magnets that help to bring his arms together and also his feet. My name is Anna and I'm so glad you're here. There are a few different ways you can do this. I give you the basic idea, but instead of magnets you could always use Velcro. If you're giving this to a young child, you'll want to either use Velcro or not do anything here at all, just because you wouldn't want them to get them detached and accidentally swallow them. So use your judgment with that. And beyond that, it's basically all the same. You'll need the following supplies. Head on over to funsockcity.com for all your sock needs, including the ones you'll need for this project. Begin by turning both of the socks wrong side out and laying them with the heel up. This foot portion of it is going to become the body, the torso of the sloth. And on this sock, this top portion will be the head, and then on each of these, we'll create the arms and the legs in this portion. So first for the body portion, I want you to sew a line that mimics the curve of the top, just right here below the heel. And when you sew, stop when you get about 1 inch from the edge, because you want to leave an opening so that you can turn it right side out. So backstitch at the beginning and at the end, but remember to leave that opening. In the end, your sewing and your cutting should look like this. If you are using the same socks that I am, it is really hard to mark on these. So instead of marking, I just pin down the center and I sew on each side. And then I have a pin placed horizontally, and that marks where I'm going to start my seams that go out to the outside. And then right here, I'll just kind of eyeball that, and I'll use this as my marker for where to stop so that I can have an opening right there. So I did the same thing on this side, and then also note that it's important that you sew first and then cut. It just really simplifies your life, because then you're not having to keep things held together. They're just already held together for you by the sock. These socks are so soft and so plushy that it's also kind of really hard to see where you've sewn. So you want to look carefully. I don't know if you can see it in the video. You can kind of see the seams. You want to be really careful not to cross over any of your sewing lines, because if you do, you'll have to patch it up. Go ahead and cut between your sewing lines. And for that head piece, go ahead and cut straight across. I'm going to do it just slightly above the heel. You want to make sure you have plenty for the head, and then any excess can be cut off. Go ahead and turn all your pieces right side out now. And then you can begin stuffing, and we'll begin by stuffing the body. You'll want to stuff it quite full, and it's a little bit hard in this narrow opening, but get it as full as you can. Once the body is finished being stuffed, go ahead and stuff the arms and the legs, as well as the head, and then we'll sew everything shut. For the head, every now and then place it on with the body to make sure you've got it to a good size, and I think that's about where I'll keep mine. There is excess fabric, but I'll show you how to take care of that in just a moment. First off, we're going to close the bottom of the body, and you'll do that first by locking the thread into place, and you do that by inserting the needle out and then right back in, and pull the threads, but before you get to the knot, push the needle between those trailing threads and then pull it tight, and that just locks it right into place. Then tuck those raw edges in and sew that shut. And I'm using a color that will blend nicely with the sock, and I love these socks because they don't show anything. But if you're not using these socks, you'll want to be a little bit more careful. All right, and then once you're all done, knot it off and then just cut off the excess. If you're using different socks that show a little bit more, push the thread in right by that knot, push it out away from that spot, pull that thread tight while you're pushing down on the body, cut it, and then it just sucks that thread right back into there, which will keep it hidden. All right, for the head, since this is about the size that I want, I'm going to cut off the excess fabric Make another knot in the end of my thread. Lock that thread into place again. And for these openings like this, just go directly opposite, pull that tight, and then go to these perpendicular sides to that and run straight across and pull that tight. And you'll just go back and forth doing that same thing over and over. And then once you have that closed up, find the toe of the sock on the body, and we're just going to attach the head onto there. So you don't need to cut this at all since we're anchoring this to the body. So once you have that initial attachment, I'm going to pull just this part a little bit away from where it's closed. I'm going to pull that down, and I'll do that by reaching up and grabbing the thread, or grabbing the sock and bringing that down and grabbing at the body. And I'll do that all the way around. And then once you have that head all the way attached, knot it off. Close the arms in the same way that we closed the head up, but we'll knot it off instead. Before attaching the arms and legs, decide how you want to have everything set up. The arms and legs have a wider part and a more narrow part, if you can see that. You want to attach them so that when they're like this wide part is running this way, because we're going to be attaching the little claws onto here. So I'll be attaching the legs so that they'll very easily go like this so that he can hang. And then also same with the arms. Make sure you attach it so that that longer part, rather than being short this way, we want it to be long this way. We'll go like that. When you have that all figured out, have your thread ready, lock it into place on the body. And we want these to be able to move a little bit, but not so much that they get pulled off really easily. So just anchor it at that point where it meets the body, attaching it more in this vertical sense, following that line of the end of the arm or the leg. You'll also be doing that along here. And then once it's well connected, knot it off and cut off the excess, or push it into the body and away and cut that off. So repeat that same thing on the other side as well as on the top for the arms. Cut the claws out from felt and then get some thread that coordinates with it, and we will attach them to the arms and legs. And I'm going to pin on here the direction that I'm going to have the claws go. I'm not actually sure what they're called. Maybe they're not claws. So they're all going to be running this way, the way that I ran the pin. So to start out with, I'm going to lock my thread into place, and then I'm just going to stab through that claw, come under it, and then right back up. And just do that over and over, all the length of that claw. And then at the very end, you can just knot that off and then push it out and cut it off. And then repeat that same method with the other 3 claws. Cut out all your felt pieces. Make sure they're the right size. Depending on how full you stuffed the head, you may need to adjust this white piece. So try that out on the head and just make sure it's the way you like it. Then if you have a sewing machine, I recommend sewing the brown pieces into place with the sewing machine, and then the black pieces also on there, and then we'll hand stitch the white part into place as well as the extending brown pieces. And then we will hand stitch a little mouth onto here. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can definitely just hand sew this into place, then hand sew everything else into place on it. But if you do have a sewing machine, it will definitely be a lot easier to sew these things into place first and then hand sew this onto the head. So to make it easier, I'm going to get the placement that I want for everything. So first I'm going to worry about the brown pieces and the nose, making sure that everything is centered and placed the way that I want it. And then once I have these sewn into place, I'll sew the little black circles into place, which will be about like that. Okay, so I've sewn these little pieces on, and you'll want to pin it into place to just kind of help hold it where you want it. And then get your thread ready. I'm gonna start with the white and sew all the way around there. When I get to where I've sewn the brown into place, I'm just gonna do that edge underneath. Don't go over it. You wanna keep it underneath. So get thread that matches as closely as possible to the background that you're using for the face. Lock it into place just inside that edge, but on the sock. And then I'm just gonna do a simple stitch all around the edge, trying to keep my stitches evenly placed, and then the same distance from the edge. Once you've gone all the way around, push the needle in and out underneath that felt, and then tie it off underneath as well. And then I'm gonna push it in right where I tied it off underneath there, but come right back out over here and then pull it tight and cut that off, so then it just pulls everything in nice and snug. Now before I take off this thread, I'm going to tie another little knot and do just a little shiny spot right here in the eye. So to do that, I'm gonna actually just go through that top layer of the black. I'm gonna actually just use that knot, I'm gonna lock it into place, and then I'm gonna just kind of go over that spot a couple of times. And I'm trying to just pull all those little threads in from the knot, creating just a little spot right there on the eye. Okay, then when you feel like you've got a spot that you really like, knot it into place along the side there, and then cut it off as close to that as you can. And then do the same thing, but you don't want to do it symmetrical. You actually want to keep it like there's light coming in. You'll do it basically in the same spot on this eye. Since this one's on the outside over here, you're going to want to do this on the inside. Then using the same method that you did around the face, do that same thing around these brown pieces that extend to the side. For the final detail on the face, I'm just going to do a little smile. Feel free to do whatever you'd like. I'm going to do kind of a smaller one right underneath the nose, and I'm drawing that with my fabric marker first, and then I'm actually going to come in underneath the nose and come out where that smile line starts. And then I like to just do a little space and come out again a little bit ways out. And then I come back to that spot and fill it in. And then bring the needle out a little bit past where those threads are coming out right there. And just keep doing that over and over. Then I'm going to push this needle out up underneath this brown right here. And then I'm going to do a little knot up here and then cut that off. Or you could do the push-in method again. Now the thread is kind of showing right here below the nose, so I'm just going to cut off more of that thread that was straggling behind beyond the knot. And then now we just have the magnets left to do. Now I'm going to use magnets to be able to bring the hands and feet together, but I want to keep them covered just to keep things soft and also to hold them into place securely. I was hoping to use the sock, but this is too thick, so if you want to use the sock, you might need to either get stronger magnets, or if your sock is thinner, that will work, but mine, it was too thick and it prevented them from holding together. So I found some thinner fabric, and it holds together really well. So I'm going to use this thinner fabric to hold it into place. And the first thing I'm going to do is figure out which sides go together, because you know with magnets there's polar sides, like this doesn't want to go together, but these sides right here go together nicely. So I'm going to mark with an X on these sides that go together. That way when I put them in the fabric, I put them in the right way, because you don't want to put polar opposites together. And I'm just going to create little pouches for each of these, and then close these up in a similar fashion to how we did the head and then the arms and legs. Now gather up all the loose parts and bring those towards the center back. And then don't detach your thread. Put it onto the foot and just attach it onto there by grabbing part of the foot and then bringing it up and grabbing that fabric that's holding the magnet. And you'll just do that all the way around, putting it securely into place. Now, if young kids are going to be playing with this, you might want to forgo magnets and instead sew on Velcro. But the reason I did the magnets is because then it still keeps the softness, whereas the Velcro is kind of scratchy sometimes. Or you could just forgo anything that sticks altogether and just go for just the look. Alright, once you've gone all the way around, go ahead and knot that off. And press that in under by that knot and out, away. Pull it tight and cut off that thread. And you'll repeat that same process on all four. And they stick together just like that. And he looks so adorable. Thanks so much for watching. Check out this video right here. I'll show you how we've made other little snuggly, what are they called? Oh, plushes. And also here's a video that YouTube thinks you might like. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of our upcoming sock tutorials. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.